Princess Celestia the Changeling Queen, Chapter 13, Part 2. In the Badlands within Chrysalis' Changeling Hive, the Badlands is known as a wasteland to most ponies. On and on stretched desolate land and dunes, baked red in the unforgiving sun. It was uninhabitable, inhospitable, and it indeed deserved its name, the Badlands. Yet it had a form of bare, scorched sort of charm to it. It also possessed unheard of grandeur in the form of the Great Chasms, a great series of chasms that cut through the plateau. It wound through it like cracks creating a honeycomb of great red tableaus. And sheltered in the plateau's slashes was Chrysalis' hive. It had a multitude of entrances, some in the side of the canyon, and others opening up onto the desert itself. The hive itself consisted of a winding maze reaching all throughout the canyon. A multitude of passages, storage chambers, rooms, and hallways formed the home of Chrysalis' hive. This underground network was lit by small portholes to the outside world, as well as magic changeling wearlights that danced in their braziers. Yet all the light revealed now was a dying hive. Hobbled thanks to a gash in her leg, Chrysalis limped through rows of wounded changelings sprawled onto the floors of her great hall. All of them being infiltrators, soldiers, workers, scouts, just her subjects. The queen could see the frustration in their eyes, hearing their moans as they nursed their wounds. Even within her thoughts, she was not safe from the mental anguish of the seriously wounded. Despite the futility of the act, Chrysalis ran into her private chamber, slamming the wooden door behind her. In the privacy of her own chamber, Chrysalis could finally step from behind the mask of emotions that she wore in front of her subjects. In other words, she burst into tears. It had been a miracle that very few changelings had died in battle, but casualties had been high and many changelings would never fight again. It was only by luck that the shield spell had thrown the hive out of Canterlot and not actually killed them, and thankfully the changelings' natural armor had protected most of them from damage. However, Chrysalis gained no comfort from the small reprieve, as tears continued to splash on the hard-packed dirt floor. Her victory had been as good as secured. The Royal Guard had been running around like headless chickens, Celestia had been defeated, the elements of harmony separated from their bearers, and although Luna had fought fiercely, even she would have been contained by her army. Then, by simply turning her back on Cadence and Shining Armor, she had made an entire month of careful planning go to waste. Now, her hive's already dwindling love storages would be depleted. Her enemy, the Shadow Empire, continued to make raids against her infiltrators, and Canterlot had been the remedy. And while unwillingly taking emotions in love would sustain them for less than deceived emotion, they couldn't resist the temptation. At this moment, Chrysalis wanted more than nothing but to scream in anguish. She had never hated herself more since the day she had taken the throne from her mother. Only iron will, honed throughout her years, held her tormented emotions in check.
How could I, a 1,000-year-old changeling queen, have failed my hive now, of all times?
She whispered, and then in a whimsical hiccuped voice, she sang. But then Chrysalis' dirge was interrupted by a knocking on her door. Swallowing her sorrow, the queen raised her voice.
What is it?
She demanded. There was a momentary pause before the changeling spoke.
Queen Chrysalis, one of our chevaliers has returned with 3 others.
Thank you. Now leave me in peace!
Ordered Chrysalis acidically.
But your highness, it's Diamond Shell!
Chrysalis blinked. Chevalier Diamondshell had been missing ever since they had been thrown out of Canterlot, and the hive's retrieval squads hadn't been able to locate her. So how did she get to the hive so quickly? Hurriedly, Chrysalis wiped her tears and opened the door. Her searching eyes quickly settled on Diamondshell and her 3 compatriots. To the queen's surprise, Chevalier Diamondshell and her accompanying changelings were fully healthy. They had no wounds, no scarring, yet all 4 changelings seemed visibly shaken.
Chevalier, report. How have you managed to return to us in such speed and in good condition?
Asked Chrysalis, her confusion hidden well beneath her stern features.
Your Highness, Princess Celestia healed us, and then Princess Luna teleported us to the edge of the Badlands.
Stammered Diamondshell. Chrysalis' eyes widened and then narrowed. What were the 2 princesses playing at? Was it a demonstration of their power to show that her subjects were at their mercy?
What else?
Diamondshell hesitated and turned to her companion. He levitated a scroll attached to her back and floated it in front of Chrysalis.
The princess gave us this scroll. It was to be delivered to you,
spoke the soldier. Chrysalis frowned, took the scroll in her magic, and deftly broke the golden seal and opened it.
We, Princess Celestia and Luna of the Equestrian Diarchy, would like to propose a truce to Chrysalis, queen of the Changeling Hive within the Badlands, and her respective subjects. Should you accept, we in Equestria will pledge to protect the life of every changeling that does not further violate the laws of Equestria within the lands of Equestria, ensure the safety of Chrysalis' Changeling Hive as a sovereign nation with its own laws and culture, pledge to find an alternate solution for changelings to coexist peacefully with ponies with full and equal rights offered to any visitors to Equestria, pledge to assist in providing Chrysalis' Changeling Hive with an alternate love source, Some assistance may include the equestrian hierarchy allowing a set amount of changelings to gather love in civilian areas. Our conditions are that you will remove all changeling infiltrators from the governing institutions of Equestria and release all prisoners held. You will withdraw all changeling soldiers from Equestria's borders immediately. You will allow us to set up an embassy at your hive. You will pledge that your subjects will submit themselves to Equestria's laws within her sovereign territory. Since the delivering of this message, you and an escort of chevaliers will come to the Everfree Forest in 1 week's time. This is where we will meet you in order to draft the final details of a resolution that will fulfill all requirements. The equestrian hierarchy will also be willing to listen to any terms or requests that you may have. If you agree to these conditions, then we, the equestrian hierarchy, will expect to see you in 1 week's time at the Everfree Forest. Should you not appear in the Everfree Forest to meet us at the appointed time, the equestrian hierarchy will consider it a declaration of hostilities between our two nations. Yours sincerely, Princesses Celestia and Luna of Equestria.
The message was brief and to the point, but it widened Chrysalis' eyes and struck her silent. If she had any less control, her jaw would be agape. Celestia and Luna's terms were, in a word, generous. It wasn't a declaration of war, nor a demand for unconditional surrender, neither was it a request for reparations. But at the same time, Chrysalis was horrified.
Your Highness, what is it?
Asked Diamondshell.
The princesses are asking for a truce. They wish to discuss a peaceful resolution and coexistence between ponies and changelings,
Spoke Chrysalis, her voice hollowly ringing in the corridor.
What? They have the gall to ask for that? After all that's happened?
Roared Diamondshell.
It could have been far worse,
Spoke the soldier. Chrysalis turned her gaze onto the silent changeling soldier that had accompanied Diamondshell.
What is your name, and explain what you mean? Scarab, Your Highness. You see, all 4 of us were personally interrogated by the princesses and Prince Blueblood.
Explained Scarab.
And?
Chrysalis demanded as she arched an eyebrow. There was something that the soldier was reluctant to tell her. The soldier hesitated.
The princesses had the power to pulverize us, to rip us apart, inflict pain beyond measure in order to get information from us. Yet, they didn't. The worst that they did, or should I say, the worst that Prince Blueblood did, was to give me a lecture. It was something I'd rather not remember, yet, although it was within their capabilities, they didn't hurt us,
Said the infiltrator. Chrysalis blinked, confused. Why didn't Celestia and Luna torture her subjects for information? Was it because they were being merciful? Perhaps, but what if they had another motive?
In fact, it seems as if Princess Celestia in particular knows a lot about our customs and speech, although she is 1,000 years out of date,
Remarked Scarab. Chrysalis's eyes narrowed as she saved that particular piece of information away for later, and then turned back to the letter.
Gather every able-bodied changeling except for the healers into the Great Hall immediately.
An hour later, Chrysalis sat upon her throne, a cool emerald shaped and chiseled to perfection. It had a high back, sculpted armrests, and adorned with warm animal furs. As she silently sat awaiting for her chevaliers to arrive, she continued to read the letter the princesses had sent to her. That damn letter. The queen forced herself not to tremble as she read it again. It spoke of peace, a way out, protection, and promise to save her hive. Try as she might, Chrysalis could not believe the letter. She just couldn't. Instead, she was afraid of it, of what it meant. The princesses knew where her hive was. While the wording revealed nothing, she bet that they knew about her hive's dire love situation. It was the only reason that they would offer such generous terms to aid in their peace attempt. They knew about the different classes of changelings, which meant that they would be able to identify how workers and infiltrators had been included in the assault force. The ponies knew everything about her hive's weaknesses, and yet were still offering to her the enemy, a way to avoid bloodshed. Despite all the damage that her hive had inflicted, the ponies had appeared to have offered her salvation. If everything written was true, then she was saved. If only everything written on it was true.
Mother, what's going on?
Croaked a frail, thin voice. Chrysalis turned slowly, searching the shadowy corner of her throne room. In the dim light, her eye settled on the pitiful figure in the shadows, and moistened immediately. It was a changeling queen. Or, well, what would have become a changeling queen. Her jagged horn was snapped close to the base of her head, and she hobbled. All that was left of her front leg was a stump. And her face. The right side had graceful features and a twinkling green eye. But the left side was blackened, charred, and any distinguishing lines or features had been wiped away. Only her mouth was somehow spared. Once again, Chrysalis was reminded of how leniency was futile with Equestria. Any doubts as to her answer were wiped away.
The ponies set a trap for me, daughter. They offered peace, but I'm not falling for it,
Replied Chrysalis. Lamia, Chrysalis' once beautiful daughter and heir, raised her single eyebrow.
Mother, I know you hate them for what they did to me. But if the ponies are really offering a truce, then perhaps we should take it.
Chrysalis shook her head, giving her daughter a pained smile.
No. I let you approach them, and I let you get hurt. The ponies have shown us their true colors. Besides, it's too late, daughter. What we did at Candlelight has undoubtedly brought Equestria's wrath upon us. If Celestia and Luna have written this letter, it's merely a ploy to just capture me.
Chrysalis stood from her throne, trotting over to her daughter and embraced her.
You should be resting, dear. You must be exhausted from tending to the wounded,
said Chrysalis, helping her daughter to the smaller obsidian seat next to her own throne. The younger Changeling Queen snorted, but looked up at her mother. Her single eye was full of concern.
I can take care of myself, Mother. Just promise me that you won't regret this decision.
Chrysalis shook her head. These ponies had maimed her daughter, her kind-hearted daughter. They were hypocrites, all of them. She knew it had to be a trap, and she would not regret her decision. In the shining city of Canterlot, Alternia proudly escorted her niece up the marble steps to the altar. Cadence was smiling radiantly through her wedding veil, matched only by Alternia's beaming grin. The crowd of ponies watched as the beautiful Alicorn took her place beside her handsome unicorn fiancé. After touching yet another solemn ceremony, the two spoke their hoof-written vows. Finally, Luna put a single question to the bride and groom.
Do you, Shining Armor and Cadence, pledge to take each other as thy lawfully wedded spouse until death do part?
In the shadows of her hive, Chrysalis and her daughter raised themselves from their thrones. Her daughter Lamia was leaning heavily on her single front leg. Despite the massive, tired, harrowed stares focused on them, the two stood resolutely. As Chrysalis explained the situation and the princess's offer, gasps and hisses from the changelings filled the hall. The noise grew until several of the senior chevaliers, including Diamond Shell, slammed their hooves into the ground. When every changeling was silent, a grizzled old changeling spoke a single question for all the changelings assembled. Queen Chrysalis and Queen's daughter Lamia, whatever has been chosen, we will follow you to the end. What is your decision?
I do,
spoke Cadence and Shining Armor, two voices in one.
We will fight,
said the changeling, one voice for all. I'll be honest, I actually thought that they were going to accept the truce, but apparently not. And hey, makes things more interesting when there's a fight anyway. Now let's get on to our very strong donators. Top donators Peter Coulthard, J10 Man, Darkside, Gauntlet, and only one thing. Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Magazine, Crazy Killer 557, Dospo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Hedge, RuneScythe 9852, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, TacoCat 598, Dash of Evergreen, Riney Dragonwolf, Ponyman, Tal Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ramen Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Skyuchia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitsune 9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Needs a Life, Milan Biehenek, and many more super strong people. Thank you all very much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.